What's up, everybody? Welcome back to part 2 of this intermediate level mixing and mastering mini series. I am Clormo, and today I'm going to talk specifically about levels and balancing of your kicks and drum section in general, also with the bass. There's a couple of pointers that I want to make there and big reasons as to why you want to start with those. And I'm just going to concentrate on just leveling and balancing, nothing more at this point. And there's very important that you understand why I'm doing that. Not only because I prefer to do it that way, but there's a few advantages that I want to share with you to see if you agree and you can take some advantage of those. So without further ado, let's just jump right into what we have. And right here, this is the project as we ended up with on part 1. Again, if you did not watch that, I have a link in the description, so you start there, and then there's also a link in part 1 to get the project so that you can follow me along. Notice that I changed stuff a little bit as far as the track order goes. I made sure to put my bass right after the kicks, just for a visual aid for me to know that, hey, I gotta start here, and once that it's to my liking, then I will keep moving on. And then the instrumentation is just in the order that they appear in the arrangement, nothing more, nothing less. One very first point that I want to make is that when you are doing your bounce in place, right, when you're exporting your tracks to audio to then add them into a clean file to start the real mixing process, you may already have, like in my case, I already had everything like at 0 level, and that was fine, but I really hadn't done any pre-mixing, I hadn't done any leveling with any of this. And I felt that when I put my tracks here, I kind of lost like loudness on most of these tracks, also because they were in a software instrument form. So what I did was I took the tracks that I thought were a little bit quieter in relation to the other parts, and I just came into the region level here. If you can just open the disclosure triangle, and I came to my gain and just add some gain. You'll see that I have plus 10 dB on a lot of these, and you might call me crazy, but you're gonna see why that does not really affect us that much when you are doing your mixing session in the mixer, because we're always gonna compress signals. We can use limiters and that type of thing if you are like clipping too much digitally, but you always should trust your ears. And if you don't really hear any distortion, like discernibly, then you should be fine if you see a big red box in the clipping levels right here. So anyway, that was just one quick pointer there to make, just so that you don't get confused. And the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open my mixer. I'm gonna go here to my master bus, my output, and I'm gonna bring a level meter. Why? Because, and I'm bringing the level meter from Logic Pro X. So you go to metering, level meter, stereo, and here's the guide. You have different options for the levels that you want to read. You have peak, RMS, and then you have both them together, and you have true peak, and RMS. I go with peak and RMS only because I want to see both how they're behaving. Peak relates to the maximum level that a signal will achieve at any point in time. Like it's max throughout the song, it's going to be, let's say, 3 dB, and it's going to be red, or 5 or whatever. That's just the loudest it's going to go at one point. The RMS is the average, right? The root mean square as you're playing the song. So that's the one we have to pay a little bit more attention to. Is the pick is important because if you're clipping too much, you want to make sure that you tame down your sound and your frequencies and your loudness level so that you are not distorting. For that, I typically just move the line. I draw the line at -9, -10. That only that's just my preference, really. from what I have done before when comparing to a reference of a commercial song, how it compares to it loudness wise. That's how I go. If you, the more you go to the right, the louder it's gonna be. I suggest that you don't try to go over zero or not so close to zero, because first of all, here we're just mixing a beat, right? No vocals, so you have to leave some headroom for it. As far as the loudness goes, you don't want to drown your vocals or have to up your vocal levels too much. And also, you don't want to introduce distortion, really. If you start going very loud, you're probably going to hear some distortion. And once you're past the point of no return, you're really going to have a hard time trying to taming that down. So my suggestion would be like download some or if you have something already in your computer that you can use as a reference, a beat with some loudness, open like a clean project, put it there, pop this up, and just take a look at how far it goes and use that for your reference and set it up accordingly. And that way you can build that custom to do that, okay? So I'm just going to leave it at -9, and now I'm going to start bringing things up little by little. I'm only going to concentrate again on the drum parts and the bass. And let's just make sure that our levels are fine, and then our balancing is going to be the panning. When I get to the bass, I'm going to comment a little bit more. But anyway, I make sure that my cycle it's at 5 because that's where the drum starts. I'm going to start with the kick. Keep in mind, I'm going to be clipping like crazy because of that extra gain, right? Keep that in mind, but like here in the actual track, but I am not hearing on my end any distortion, anything weird. So this should be right now, it's going okay. I'm going to try to get a little bit closer to 9. Gosh, trying to make that a little bit less loud. So I'm comfortable with that there. Again, like I said for part 1, I am one that doesn't really like to see any red here if I can help it. Right now it's kind of loud or kind of peaking digitally quite a lot. So we're going to deal with that in the next part, but all you need to know is that I can also put a limiter there and set a ceiling if you're worried about that, but we're going to deal with that later. Just start to play with the levels here and now. Your kick obviously is going to be right at the center of everything, and there it is. It's right at the center. This second kick that I have is mostly a layer, just to give it a little bit of an accent. So I may pan this a little bit. Let's just start bringing it into the mix little by little. So I'm gonna solo it first, so you know what the sound is. So that's how it sounds on its own. If I unsolo it, it's probably not going to be pleasant. Notice how my levels went a little bit overboard. And this is why this is important, right? I brought the kick in first to the level that I wanted because I want to make the kick a very important part of the speed, right? I want to give it a starting roll like I usually say. But as you bring other stuff in, your levels are going to change. So you have to then just trace back and start lowering and just balancing everything to make sure that you keep your levels in check. So now that I know that I'm a little bit overboard there. I'm gonna play that again. I'm gonna not only tame down a little bit this kick because I don't want it to kind of be that overpower my original one. Right there, I'm at 9, minus 9 dB. I'm gonna move this just a tad to the left, like there. And again, my peak on the master boss, it's still -1 because I have that adapted limiter. If you wanna know what each track is peaking, you can see it here. This one is 5.1, and then this was at 1. Now I'm gonna start bringing my bass, and the bass, it's important to mix with the kick at the same time because they both play together. They live in the same frequency range, right, in the lower to low mid frequencies, and you essentially don't want them to clash with each other. So in subsequent sections, I'm going to show you different ways of not helping that, right? Not clashing. But you have to have a good idea of how they are both interacting at this stage, because that's going to help you make it easier for you later via equalization and compression and all that good stuff, and side chaining with how to make them play well together based on the frequency ranges that they are covering and the sound that they're making. So very important to do this. In my opinion, this is just a recommendation. You can do it in any order, really, like if you want to, as long as you're paying attention to the frequencies that you're altering and what frequencies you're covering. You should be fine, honest to God. This is just my recommendation. The same principle applies to everything else. So when you're bringing the different other elements and the instrumentation parts, you also have to pay attention to what frequencies you're covering and make sure that things are not clashing, and take appropriate action via EQing or compressing, limiting, bosses, all that stuff. But we're all cover that in subsequent sections. So let's just bring the bass in. So here's the thing, I can hear the bass pretty well. I want to make it just a tad louder. But now I think I then want to just bring all those three elements down a little bit. It's about half a dB in reference or in relation to the kick. So watch our levels again. It's pretty decent for now for this stage. I'm gonna also leave my bass right at the very middle. Don't overthink this, please. I tend to overthink it. I am not saying I'm not guilty of that, but try not to overthink it. Just make sure that if it sounds good to you, if it sounds good through the system, at this point, you should be fine later. We're putting more weight at this point at the mixing. We're putting more emphasis on this so that when you get to a mastering or right at the very end, you don't have to track back if you made a mistake. You know, you put a lot of more work here, but that's not to say just spend days doing this. Just give it a first go and then fine tune it as you have everything set up. Okay, now let's just go through the other ones in the same manner, and I'm just gonna pan accordingly and give you any pointers. Okay. So that's my main snare. I wanna also highlight it a little bit, so I'm paying attention to how it sounds in relation to the bass and the kick, and I like it there. You can obviously set it whatever you want, okay? Maybe make it just a touch. I think that's good. Let's listen to it on its own. It's not as loud as the rest. It's quite loud. I have this accent snare, kind of a ringing snare, that I'm gonna move just a touch to the right. And let's bring it to the mix. Good levels there. I think my kicks, I may drop just a little bit more. Let's do that. So this is why that gain that I gave in the beginning is not necessarily a bad thing. Maybe I overdid it with the 10. I just wanted to give you the example, make it a little bit extreme so that you kind of also get into the rhythm of not being afraid of seeing clipping here. Again, like I said, I'm gonna kind of tame that down a little bit in later videos, but you can always start without doing any gain like I recommended in the beginning. Take a look at your levels, and if you are already reaching that loudness level that I have recommended or that you want, let's say you wanted to go at -6, if you're already reaching that with what you have without any extra gain, then don't put any extra gain. Let's just work with what you have, okay? Now let's finish this. Shaker, actually let me bring this down a little bit because we're not going to be using any of that stuff over here, and I just want to have a view of what I have here because some of the other elements are like farther down. Let's probably put this here, okay? So for this shaker, I kind of want to do a binaural panning. I don't know if you have used it before. It's pretty useful. What this does is like gives you a wider stereo spread, and you see this ball moving front to back. Try to visualize that as having that particular track being more in front of the mix or more behind the mix. So I want to do this like being like behind your left ear a little bit. Let's see if I can, how does that sound? So it helps with not having to raise the levels that much. Still kind of on the same range of level at the RMS that I wanted. That's good. Now this percussion though lives here, so Same with this crash. Oh, this crash I'm probably just gonna leave just there. So it's a syncopated double crash. I'll probably do some binaural panning here too. Make it a little bit more in the like there, just to balance a little bit with the shaker. Okay, this clap is way over here, so no point in torturing you. Couldn't even hear it. There it is. Okay, so I'm gonna try to balance that out just a little bit. It gets a little bit effect of snappiness when this snare stops, and then you kind of do a little syncopation between this percussion, the crash, and the clap. So it kind of falls nicely back into the main beat. Now the slow tom is right at the very end, so this is probably not gonna be a problem. Yeah, it sounds on its own, so I'm not gonna pan it or anything. I'm just gonna but let's see. Yeah, it's really on its own. There's other instruments here. We may find some problems with this later, but I'm not gonna jump ahead. I'm just gonna make this maybe not too loud. That's kind of good loudness there to have for now. And now let's listen at the whole thing. Obviously, we're not gonna have a lot of the elements, so I'm just gonna go all the way to there so that we can listen at the main arrangement for my drums and with the bass, and just take a listen to that from that point. So it's pretty good for a first pass. My RMS levels are just below where I want them. I could probably now take a little bit of liberty here and just a little bit less, just to have more room. I always have to have more room than not, because then on the next video I'm gonna be dealing with the instrumentation. And if you have been paying attention to all that I have been saying so far, which I realize might be a lot of info for those of you that have never dealt with this before, a lot of this instrumentation that I chose to put here in this example, it's quite bright, overpowers a lot of the drum elements as it was put in the beginning. So I don't want to be too greedy with my levels here. Because when I start bringing this stuff in, it's probably not gonna take much for me to clip or even distort if I go too crazy. So I just want to make sure that I can tame down my drums at this point, and that I can always reference back when I start putting all these other elements, that I can just come here and then in reference to the kick bring stuff down and just glue everything together, and have things play nicely. That's really a a lot of what mixing is just make sure that things play nicely. I'm gonna keep repeating that a lot and visualizing the frequencies. And I said this in my basic level video, kind of did a little bit, just saying, okay, just make sure that you visualize in your EQ what your frequencies are, and make sure that things have their own space and sorry, and play nicely. Okay. So let's see. Do we want to do something else? No, that should be all for now. So in the next video, then I'm just gonna go and do the same thing that I did here, but for the instrumentation. So it's gonna be a way shorter video. My apologies for extending this a little bit but a little bit more, I should say. But I think the purpose of it, which was mostly to emphasize why you need to put your drums and your bass in the mix kind of at the same time, was the main thing. I think accomplished that. And then the second thing was to just get you familiarized with the level meter if you have never used it before, and how to pay attention to what levels you're putting. I spoke about the binaural panning, which is something that's pretty good also to spread things around in the stereo field. And now in the next video, when I start doing that for the instrumentation, I don't have to repeat myself. I'll just go right ahead and just mix stuff up with the drums at this point. So I'm gonna save the file. And if you found value in this video, remember, subscribe, like this video, comment. If you are watching me for the first time, do the same thing. I invite you to subscribe if you think this is gonna be worthwhile. And then what else from this that I have shown you here in relation to part 1 as well? What else did you learn today with this video? What didn't you know about? What things you weren't paying attention when doing your mixes that you think are gonna help you right away if you put them into work in your own beats and music productions? Leave me a comment and let's just see what everybody's opinion is of what I think, how I do my stuff when mixing. How do you do it? How you think maybe there's something that I did that you think you have a better way of doing it? Let's just share it, and let's just make sure that everybody shares their knowledge, and that way we all kind of grow together. So remember also you can not only leave me a comment here, but any other of my social media places as well. I pay attention to the messages that everybody leaves for me, almost all of them, and I will reply as quickly as possible. If I don't do, I will apologize before replying and tell you maybe a lame excuse as to why I didn't reply in a few days. But anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for the support. Peace out, people.